So, your scan tool is flashing a P0011 code, and you're wondering what on earth that means. Well, you are in exactly the right place. Over the next few minutes, we're going to break down this super common check engine light error step by step. You'll know exactly what your car is trying to tell you, and more importantly, what to do about it.
Oh, yeah, we have all been there. You're just driving along, minding your own business, and then bam, that little orange engine light pops up on the dash. Your heart sinks a little, right? But it really doesn't have to be a moment of dread. Think of that light as your car trying to talk to you, and today we're going to learn its language.
All right, so what is this P0011 code, really? I know the official definition looks super technical, but it boils down to something pretty simple. Your engine's computer has noticed that the intake camshaft on one side of your engine is, well, it's running ahead of schedule. Its timing is too far advanced. Here's a great way to picture it. Imagine a musician in an orchestra who keeps playing their notes just a little bit too early. It kind of throws off the whole symphony, right? It's the same thing in your engine. The valves are opening sooner than they're supposed to, and that messes with performance and efficiency. So, let's start decoding this message. The code itself gives us some major clues, and your car is giving you even more through the way it's driving. First, we'll break down what bank 1 means, and then we'll get into what you might actually be feeling from the driver's seat. The first clue is right there in the code, bank 1. Now, what does that mean? On a V6 or V8 engine, you have two banks of cylinders. Bank 1 is simply the side that has the number 1 cylinder. If you've got a little 4-cylinder, it's even easier. You've usually only got one bank anyway. So this code points you exactly where you need to look.
And these symptoms, they're the direct result of that timing being off. A rough idle, maybe some stalling, or the car just feels kind of sluggish. That's because the engine is struggling to run smoothly. You might also notice you're hitting the gas station more often, or you might even hear a weird rattling noise. These are all clues your car is giving you.
Okay, before we start pulling parts off or thinking about expensive repairs, our investigation has to start with the number one single most common culprit. Let's talk about your engine oil.
And this right here is probably the most important thing you'll hear today. I really can't say it enough. More often than not, a P0011 code is caused by something as simple as low or dirty engine oil. This is always where you start. Period. So, why is oil so important here? Well, modern engines use a clever system called variable valve timing, or VVT, to boost performance and fuel economy. And guess what this system runs on? Pressurized engine oil. It literally uses oil pressure to physically adjust the camshaft's timing. So if your oil is low or it's old and sludgy, it just can't build the pressure it needs, and the whole system starts to fail.
This means your first move is incredibly simple. Pop the hood, pull out that dipstick, and really look at the oil. Is the level low? Does it look dark and gritty? If you answer yes to either of those questions, your very next step is a fresh oil and filter change. Honestly, for a lot of people, this one simple thing will make that check engine light go away. Okay, but what if you've changed the oil, you've cleared the code, and that pesky light comes right back on? What's next? Well, now our investigation moves on to the actual parts of that variable valve timing system. Let's meet our next suspect, the VVT solenoid. You might also hear it called an oil control valve. Just think of this thing as an electronic gatekeeper. The car's computer sends a signal to this solenoid, telling it when to open and close. That action controls the flow of pressurized oil to the mechanism that physically rotates the camshaft. The good news is, testing this solenoid is a pretty straightforward job. First, just look at the wiring and connector for any obvious damage. Then you can pull it out and check the tiny little filter screen on it for any gunk or sludge. You can even apply 12 volts of power to it and listen for a solid click. But honestly, the absolute best test if you have a V-style engine is to just swap the solenoid from bank 1 with the one from bank 2. If your P0011 code magically turns into a P0021 code, boom, you've found your culprit.
Now, if you've done the oil change and you've checked out the solenoid, but that light is still on, it might be time to consider some of the less common and frankly more serious mechanical problems.
And this slide really shows the difference in scale we're talking about. A bad solenoid is an oil flow or an electrical issue. It's a pretty simple part and it's not that expensive to replace. A stretched timing chain? Well, that's a whole different ballgame. That's a major mechanical failure, and the repair is a lot more complex and a lot more expensive. And that's exactly why we always rule out the simple stuff first. Some other possibilities could be the VVT actuator itself, that's the actual gear on the end of the camshaft, or even a faulty camshaft position sensor that's just sending bad information to the computer. Diagnosing and fixing these things is way more involved, and at this point, it's probably a good idea to talk to a professional mechanic.
Whew, we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? So let's pull all this information together and create a clear, final action plan for how you should tackle a P0011 code.
The biggest takeaway here is to just follow this diagnostic ladder. Always, always, always start with the easiest and most common fix, your oil. Only if that doesn't solve it do you move on to the next step. Following this logical order is going to save you so much time, money, and a whole lot of frustration.
And here it is, the final, absolutely essential step in any car repair. Once you've replaced a part or just changed the oil, you have to clear that code from the computer's memory with your scan tool. Then take the car for a good test drive to make sure the fix actually worked and that dreaded light stays off for good.
And so that really leaves us with this one last thought. A P0011 code can sound pretty intimidating, I get it. But as we've seen, its most common cause is ridiculously simple. So before you start thinking about complex diagnostics and expensive repairs, just ask yourself that one fundamental question. It might just be the only one you need to answer.